Hello.
How are we both today?
Oh, I'm all right now. I got my license.
Good, good.
I do.
Emails every 5 minutes all morning. I was just like, looking forward to
Already?
seeing this.
Yeah, cool. Good. Um, all set for tomorrow, Cornet, for your talk?
Absolutely. Excited for it.
Good, good.
Can't
Good.
wait.
Nice. Just as the usual caveat, this is going to be over on YouTube and streaming that. If you don't want to be on YouTube, you might want to just jump off this call, just to let you know. Hello, Dean. You alright?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one.
Good, good.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I know. Seb's been off 2 weeks in a row. I'm
Front,
having
no,
to...
2 weeks in a row front end stuff.
I know, I know.
So yeah,
I will try and do my best to demo Niels's work
I'm
as best as possible.
fascinated to see how this works.
I'm sure you're going to have a ton of questions. But yeah, as usual, just jump on in. I'll give it another minute or so before I'll start.
I'm hoping it will behave in a similar way to the old grid system. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. We can take questions as we go along. Some other people are joining. Cool. Right, whilst that is doing, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And remember which monitor. So it's going to be this one. And then we want better text readability. And then you're probably all going to see yourselves. Can we see Visual Studio?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Cool, good. So 10.3 RC has literally just come out this morning. So you can go and follow along afterwards or later in the week. So I'm just going to spin this up. And then we're going to jump in. And we'll start from nothing as well. So it's a real working demo. And we'll learn and work together and figure this out. So just to prove it, it is 10.3.rc. And so let's go and create a new document type. And I will call it grid, just to be really unique. And we'll call this content. Right, and then we're going to add our grid. So we've now got in here and the list of, where is it? Rich content, here we are. So the grid layout, or the grid the current grid as we know it, has been marked as legacy. Eventually, I think over time, it will be fully deprecated and maybe removed, but don't hold me to that. But it's still there if you want to use it. It's just been marked as legacy in the hope that you'll start using the new block grid. So I've got our block grid here, and then I can start creating a new block grid. And as you can see, we've got quite a lot of configuration. I'll go from top to bottom, and then we'll go through it. So yeah, we've got this nice box or UI to tell us that here's a kind of getting started. We'll create you some blocks for you, like a headline and a rich text and an image. So you can click that and it will scaffold it for you. Then we've got groups. So the groups is for organizing your blocks from the block list catalog. So when you kind of slides out from the right and you kind of like, oh, I want that block and that block. It's more for organizing things into groups, and it's more for permissions as well. So when you want to say, I want to allow, rather than saying I want to allow the rich text editor and the header, you can just say, I will allow anything to be added to this block that is in a specific group. So again, a nice usability thing there. Most of this is similar from block list. So the amount and live editing and the editor width. Here, obviously, we've got grid columns. By default, we use 12 for you, and we use CSS Grid under the hood. You're not forced to use CSS Grid, but it will make your life easier doing so. You can, obviously, with Umbraco and anything we do, obviously you can go off at your own tangent, and maybe you want to, I don't know, use Flexbox and some other rendering type approach. You're more than welcome to. And then we've got a button label here, so maybe rather than, if you've obviously got a single block in this configuration, then obviously it will normally say create and then whatever the block type alias is, but you might want to override it and say create grid elements or something that is contextual to the page or the block grid that you're making. So I am going to click this snazzy button and save us a bit of time because it's just a little bit easier. So clicking it, I get straight away, I get 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. And you can see it's created a group as well called demo blocks. So 2 column layout, let's take a look at this one first. So its only goal is that this block can be allowed at the root. And then if I go to, so it's kind of been grouped now, we've got some of groupings for some of these configurations. So rather than one very long list of bits and pieces, and we've kind of hidden away settings that you may not necessarily set straight away. And if you kind of really want to set them or specifically override them, then obviously we can go and like, okay, I now want to make the catalog appearance of the kind of like these blocks and the list. I can obviously then go in and, I don't know, white icon on a purple background, I can do so. So for the 2 column one, it is literally created 2 areas, and this allows, I've got a left and I've got a right. So in the left, I can then specify the number of blocks that are allowed in this kind of area. So I can say that only maybe 1 block in here and 1 block on the right, potentially, or I'm happy with it just being an infinite number. I can obviously then restrict it by a specific block type. So I can then, from here, I can select a specific block or a group of blocks, hence, yeah, this demo blocks. I can say anything of demo blocks is allowed. But obviously if I don't set anything, that just means anything is allowed. So I can add a third area if I wanted. I don't know, call this third and submit that. And the handle at the bottom here, you can see it there, it's kind of small, but if we hit over the hit point, so you can see there's a white square in the bottom right hand corner, we can kind of drag it to make that area. So it's now a 5 by 1. So we could have made these, what, 3, my maths is terrible, was it 4, 3 and 7, 5 even, to make up my 12. Obviously I can change them, I can drag them around as well and change the position of the areas, but I'm gonna just kind of close that and cancel my changes, hopefully. Yep. And then if I wanted the grid columns for areas to have a different ratio, so if I don't want it to be 12, if I want this to be split into 6 when you put anything in here, then I can do that as well. And you can see that we've got these information or these eyes, and if I click it, I can obviously get a bit more contextual help about what some of these settings do. You can see there's quite a few settings, and obviously we've got the advanced. By default, we've created a custom view for you and set it up. Similar to as what you could do with the block list, you can set a view and a style sheet. We've just kind of grouped it in a way that's just a bit easier to navigate, because there is a lot of configuration here and it can get a little bit overwhelming at first. Hence we had this option to create some demo block grid elements for you, because kind of wiring all this up for the very first time to experiment or play with can be a little bit tedious, so hence we kind of went down this route. So I am just going to save that, save. Make sure I can create this type of page at the root. So you can see when I click that button in the configuration, I've now got a folder under document types that are now of these just block types. And obviously I can then modify them a bit later on. So with that being done, let's create a page. UmbraCollab. And I can start clicking add content. And let's first create a headline. Hello UmbraCollab. And I'm getting a preview. So we're shipping some back office previews for you to use out the box. And then let's have a 2-column. So I've got this left and the right. So I'm going to add something on the left. Maybe I'm going to add a demo about grid. And then underneath it, so I've got some of these inline kind of bars or buttons. So you can see I can create things inline. So I could create an element above that very first header. So I could do it here. I could do it in between the header and this 2-column, because you can see that blue bar kind of spans the whole width of the grid. Or I can navigate further down and then hit this slightly smaller blue bar, which is obviously just 1 column or 1 width. So let's do that and create a piece of rich text. Hello world, and some other text. And then on the right, we could add an image from a media picker. I don't know, there's a picture of some forest here. That'll do. And we can select that. And we've kind of got a very basic grid just out of the box. Is there any others that are here? No. So if we save and publish that, as you all know, this is not going to render anything because I haven't put anything in my view or done anything, but let's just prove the point. There you go. It's even complaining. What am I done? It's probably models builder potentially. So let's go and take a look. Let's save and build just to make sure. Models, yeah, we got some models. So in my view, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to be lazy and not have like a head and a body, and obviously which you should do, but for ease of use for this demo, HTML get, right, was it get block grid HTML async, and then it's expecting the property, so model.grid in excuse me. And obviously you can see that there's get grid HTML as well, but it's this approach that we need to do. And as it's async, I need to await it. And then there's an overload or additional property that we can set. You can see that by default, it uses a default template rendering engine, and we can override that if we want to. But for now, let's just do this. And we'll refresh and see what we get after I remember to start running the site again. Okay, so not really kind of how I was expecting it to look, but we can take probably a quick look at what it spat out. So it's rendered some markup for us, some divs and things like that, and you can see that there's some inline CSS variables for CSS grid. And we've got some data attributes as well to help with CSS styling for targeting specific elements. So we've got ones for data content element type. So you can see this one was the headline block. And then you can see the element key. So if you know a specific UDI or key, then you can maybe style or do something specific to that if that's needed. along with, you can see that we've got the amount of columns that it's going to span and the rows it's going to span, as well as data attributes. So I'm going to refer to our documentation that is yet to be published. I know it's going to be published very shortly. I was hoping it was going to be ready before this call. And I'm going to scroll down, and in here somewhere, if I remember where it is, where did they put it? Sorting blocks, rendering, getting closer. So we're going to take this snippet here for the style sheet, and we're going to put that in our view or page. So let's go and do that. Again, I should obviously have a head and whatnot, but again, for laziness, we'll just do this. So this is I've just realized that's not the right one. It lives at a different location. Lives at maybe they changed it at the last minute. That would be useful. Let's just do a quick search for CSS. Always useful when something is changed from when you tried it earlier. Let's see if it exists there on disk. I don't think it does anymore. Yeah, there's no CSS here or here. I'm going to have to refer to my other demo that I was playing around with this morning. Let's shove it over here. Okay. So it does live here as an static asset that you can refer to. It's just not very visible because it's in an RCL. Maybe the documentation's still in flux and they're just making some last minute tweaks, but this is the path that you need to refer to. Obviously, if you want to modify the starting point, then the recommendation, obviously with anything with RCL, is that you go and download this file. So you request it in a second like so. That's because this will now make the page a lot nicer. You can see I've got 2 columns and I've got this spanning the full width now. I could use network tab. I could then grab the file, save it, and then override it and refer to it locally. So that's another option. I think that's what their documentation is trying to refer to. Cool. So now you can see I've got a very basic grid, and I think that was the quick 101 for grid I had off the top of my head, and then I was happy to just kind of either attempt to style something and build something together, or take any questions. Feels like I've been chatting for the last 15-20 minutes to myself, so has anyone got any questions or anything they want to interject with? You're all deathly silent. That means I'm either doing a good job or a bad job. I can never tell. Okie doke.
Hi, Warren.
Hello?
Hi, it's Andy.
Hey.
What's the process for creating custom grid elements? Just remember in days of old with like Umbraco 8, we would use doctype grid editor and do whatever else to sort of like the default grid system.
Yeah, okay. So let's start modifying some of this then. Let's open this up. Edit. I'm going to ask make a couple of changes. I like my grid preview to be a little bit wider, so I've just set it to be 100% down here. So I'm going to add a new block. So this is a new element type. So I'm going to create a new element type. I can carry on with the flow, and I'm going to call. Oh, don't want the icon yet. I'm going to call this one, if I can type in here, there we go, full bleed. I did have, I've got so many things open today. This kind of demo of a CSS grid that I was hoping to, if we got time, to try and loosely replicate. So I'm going to try and, at least for now, focus on this bit. You can see that this background bar is kind of the full width, and then I've kind of got like a nested grid in the middle here. So yeah, I'll see if we can try and replicate that. So I know there is one that looks like a width. And this is not going to have any properties or anything like that. It's literally an element type for other element types to live nested underneath it. So if I save and close, we can then create maybe a full bleed one that has the background color on it, maybe settings. And we'll create one background color. And this eyedropper, yeah, fine. Show the palette, yep. Save and close. As with block list, I could create an Angular based like filter. I know Joe's done a great blog post about this in the community, kind of like a cheat sheet, so refer to that if you want to kind of build up a label there. Then we've got these resize options. I was hoping that Niels was going to be on the call today to help explain this a little bit better. It allows a block to be resized. I'll see if I can demo it, but for now we'll skip over it. So this full bleed, I'm going to then have allow it to be in the root. I'm not going to allow it in areas, otherwise it would kind of nest too far down. So I can then create an area, but I'm just going to have one area that's going to be, I don't know, the full bleed or whatever. And it's going to allow anything from those demo blocks, but it's the same as everything anyway. Here it's bleed of 6. Yeah, so that's, I'm now having to remember how to break this up. So this is going to be the 6, and this is then going to be the grid that's going to be, or the area that's going to be centered, or that's the goal anyway. So let's submit and save that. And save that. Come back to our content. Let's add this kind of full bleed thing. You can see inside here I've then got that 6 column, but it's obviously to the left and not centered, but hopefully with some CSS or in a custom view we can make that centered in this kind of grid, and then same on the front end. And you can see I've got a cog because I've said that this block for the grid is going to have some settings, so I can then say let's have a background color of this kind of pinkish hue and choose that. And then in here, let's have a header that is hello again. Let's get something. Let's just put something in there. So let's save and publish that and go back to our site and then see what we need to do. Did it not work? Interesting. Should have had at least something down here. Let's now figure out what's happened. Didn't save it for whatever reason. Not sure what happened there. I've either found a bug in the RC or I've just got bad luck. Right, it says it's saved and published. Let's browse away and come back. It's there that time. Cool. Right, that's what was it kind of expecting. So this kind of gives me an error. If I zoom in a little bit, it tells me that could not render component of type full bleed. It's expecting a partial view at block grid components full bleed. So let's go and do that. So the demo ones that we create for you, again, they're from an RCL. I've given the team some feedback kind of already, saying that when you kind of scaffold those, it would make sense that those files from the RCL also appear on disk, because at the minute it's kind of just a magic black box. They're just magically working and I've got nothing to kind of copy from. But let's start creating some folders and flesh this out. So it was block grid. Is it block grid and components? Block grid components full bleed. And I can add another folder, components. Then I'm going to add a razor view. So this is very similar to the block list already. Oh, go away, not that way then. Yeah, this is very similar to what we currently do with block list. So if you've used block list, hopefully this is not too daunting at the moment. And it was full bleed. And then I'm going to have to refer to the work in progress docs to know what I've got to put in there. There you go. That's handy. I'm already at a snippet, so I can just copy and paste this to the correct example. So the underlying model is a block grid item, and similar with block list view, you have the model.content and the model.settings. Obviously, I then need to do this kind of casting. So I've got content models dot, what did I call it? Full bleed. And this one was full bleed settings. And then rather than content.value.heading, as I'm using models builder, I could just do content. Well, this full bleed doesn't actually have anything, does it? So we want a div with an inline style with something like background color. And we'll have a div, and then in here we're going to render the kind of the child blocks inside it. And that is of, I think that's right. So this would be settings, settings dot, and then my background color. And then let's rerun our site and see if we loosely get a part of the page that is now the color that we set. Not quite. So we can take a look and figure out what's going on. Background color is of nothing. I'm not entirely sure when I went round last time that I actually set a color after it disappeared on us. So I click the cog. No, I didn't set a color. Let's have it to be this pinkish hue. Save and publish. Refresh. Okay, now we've got our pink. Cool. I would now maybe want a custom back office view as well. We can maybe do that in a minute. Let's try and focus on kind of, yeah, getting it to semi look like this. So let's add a bit of text underneath. That's their text. Let's just copy paste. let's add some CSS and kind of tidy up this up a little bit. Oh. CSS UmbraCollab.css. Let's create one. Whilst the site's running, we can get it to be in the back office. UmbraCollab. And then we'll just set everything to have a nothing margin for now, just to neaten it up a tiny bit. There we go, it's a little bit tighter. Right. And then we can start using dev tools, and let's figure out what I would need to do. So I've got this grid area, container, so you can see the grid of the 12. So I've got this data area alias with a bleed, so we just play around with the inline styles for now. So let's just set a background of yellow, and then I'm having to really rack my brains for CSS grid. Is it column grid column start, isn't it? Grid column start 4. So I've now saying out of that 12 grid, out of this wide grid, I'm saying anything in this one that is bleed, start the grid from column 4, and it's going to go all the way to 10, because we said this one was only going to span 6. So let's create a data area alias of bleed. So let's create some CSS for that. Would say a div that has the attribute of data area alias bleed, and we're grid column start is 4, and then let's just background, let's just set green or a color just to make sure I did do it right. Yeah, cool. So we can take that color off, and we've kind of got that very loose full bleed column here of a background that obviously I can change for different sections. Maybe it needs to be a different color, and then we've got this centered. Maybe now I need this text to be centered for the header, so we can then start finding this header and finding an appropriate CSS selector. So I could say that anything that is of this element type alias, so let's copy this. And let's say anything that is within this existing area of bleed, that then is also another div inside it, that is then has the data. Let's just copy and cut this. Data content element type alias of headline. Let's take the quotes out, I'm not too worried. Let's say that this is gonna be center. Yeah, so we're kind of getting there. And you can kind of see, obviously, with some of these data attributes, there's a way to kind of, I hope, start targeting the bits that you need on the page to be overridden. And now if I was to go to the back office, I obviously don't have something that looks fully like this. So maybe the next thing I would focus on is now to create a custom view for this full bleed, which we can, I'm just trying to see what time we've got left. Yeah, we can try and do, and then we can take some questions, or we can just play around and try something together. So I am going to, not in www root, I'm going to stop the site because it doesn't like me creating folders whilst it's running, or not easily anyway. App underscore plugins, so similar to block list already. So I'm going to choose a HTML view, and a potentially related CSS. And I might need to register some JavaScript. If I do, then I'd create a package manifest, but I might be able to just do it with a HTML view. Search for HTML. And we'll call this one full bleed. And then it needs to be a div. Right, let's refer to some of the dots because there is a little bit of magic or something that we do need to know. So build your own rendering. That's something for another day. The CSS class, creating a block grid programmatically. Did they put it in this docs? So it's this slot. So this is part of 10.3 RC as well, is that the back office is starting to use the Umbraco UUI library web components. So these kind of inline lines with the grid, the plus, that's coming from the Umbraco UUI library web components that we have. And yeah, web components use slots and things like that. So under the hood, yeah, this is kind of using web components, just to let you know. So we will need to have this slot name to say, yeah, so let's just copy paste this for now and see what we get. And let's run it, and then we can come back and do our modification. So we're now going to go to configure the property, to the configuration. So I'm going to go to that full bleed block. Then I've got advanced. Then I'm going to set a custom view. And then I'm going to browse the app plugins and this full bleed HTML. Submit and save and save and save again and save all the way down. So you can see it has our very faint green border. But obviously what we want to show is that anytime I change this, that I get the color kind of represented in this block. So let's do that. So rather than this border green, we're going to have an inline style of background, color, and it's an angular thingy. So it's an expression. And now I really have to test in my knowledge. Block dot settings data, I believe, and then the property alias. So we called it background color. So if that works first time, I'll be impressed with my memory. So let's save that and find our site and refresh. Oh, that was good memory. So yeah, obviously now I've got something that's starting to feel a bit more like our front end. I can obviously change this, maybe I like a light blue. So the only thing that I haven't done that I would need to do, and I'm gonna maybe park it for now, is that I'd need some custom CSS in my custom view to say that this kind of 6-column grid that lives inside it now of the area needs to start up a kind of position for column 4 like we did on the front end. So we just say move this over here so it's more in the middle, so it's more represents what we see on the front end. And obviously with CSS on the front end, different media queries and breakpoints, then obviously you could rejig some of the columns in the grid about, so that okay, when this resized down, maybe it doesn't make sense for it to always be in the middle. Maybe this would then be like, oh, this is now going to take full width, so we take that grid start off and just make it, yeah, the full width. So yeah, lots of options, lots of possibilities. We want to get it out to your hands to start using it in the RC phase and start giving us feedback. The more that, yeah, you use it in the RC period between now and release, we can do these polishes and tweaks and things that maybe we didn't think about or overthought. So yeah, that is Grid in a nutshell. Any questions or comments or anything that anyone wants me to show specifically? I'm more than happy to try my best without Neil's here.
I just have a question on where you were setting up the columns. I noticed you could like set the height where you're doing like 1x6. How does that work, and like how would that interact with blocks that even don't have fixed heights, like the rich text? Or
this is where I would need Neil's, but we can at least try it out. So from what I know, so like say for example this 2-column grid, maybe these items under here, I might want it to span height of 2 instead. Yeah, it does get a little complex. CSS Grid is still relatively new to me, coming from the days of nested tables and spacer GIFs. This is all kind of very funky to me as well. But let's take a look and see what we can do. Create page. Yeah, don't worry about the unsaved changes. So yeah, let's try and learn together. So yeah, that 2-column layout. Yeah, we've got areas. So yep, I can say, let's create another one. And I don't know, let's call this left 2, not very original. And then let's say this right one can span the height of both of them. Let's see what that happens. Let's see what that does. So I now have, let's delete everything out to make life a bit easier maybe to see and start over. So we're going to create our 2-column, which is not, yeah, 2-column enough. So we've got, let's add a, excuse me, let's have a headline on this side, UmbraCollab. Let's have an image. Let's pick that one. And then let's have another image. I've got something else. Oh, upload even. Yeah, we'll use this one. Okay. Also, another thing I didn't show is that we can just drag and drop these around nice and easily. You can see as it's allowed at the root of the grid, I was able to kind of drag it out and I get this kind of full width one. Oh, I want it to be under that side and I want it to be in here. Let's just play around. Oh, where did I put it? Save and publish. Let's have a look.
Doing that.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Carry on. Oh, I was about to say, like, you were able to move 2 columns on the right side at the same time, but wasn't it configured that you were only allowed to have 1 column on the right side and 2 on the left, or rows? Sorry.
So
if you were to move the image on top of, yeah, something like that.
So now that is.
Shouldn't that technically not be allowed with your current configuration?
It's because I've got 2 areas, but the areas can have as many elements in them. So if I go back, so let's go back. So if we say that we only want each area to have 1 block only, we can do that. So let's go back. Down, 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 down. So let's go back to our 2-column layout, our areas. So let's say that the left you can only have one block. A right, you can only have one block.
Oh.
This one can only have one block. So each of these areas could have an infinite number of blocks stacked in them. So this left, or this first one could have 20. This one could have whatever. But yeah, if we want it to be like 1-to-1, so we can then specifically say only one. And then we could say one of, so this one on the right is always going to be an image. So let's make that one an image. And then this one, it can be, yeah, anything, but it's one. And this one is one as well. Let's try that. Save, save, save. So you can see now I'm getting some errors. So it's complaining that I've got two things in this first area of the top grid, but I can drag it and then move it into this one. So I've got the one here and then the other one here. And then if I try to, I think if we drag this one over here, we get says too many. But if I now try to move the header over here, you can see the drop point flashes red at me to say, look, you can't put that type of block into that area of the grid. So I can't put a header. I can only drag an image into that side. And I've so save and publish that. What was it complaining about? Where have I missed an validation error that I can't see? Content amount requirements are not met. So we've got one wide one that didn't have any. This has a 1 in it. This has 1 in it. This has 1 in it. Strange. Again, maybe I found a bug. The joys of testing RC software. Let's delete that. Let's just see if this saves first of all. That saves. Cool. Some copy. That saved. I don't know. Don't know what happened there. So you can see it spans. So this one spans 2. Then I could have like a rather than 2 column, I might call it like a call to action or something. So I might have an image or something, and then a header and some intro text, and then maybe there's a button and things like that. And then I have a call to action part of the page. Then I have this kind of full bleed, and then you can see that I could kind of build up a page of various different blocks, if that's how I want to build my site. Did that answer your questions in terms of one, the row span, and then restricting what can go in what columns and where?
Yeah, I think so. That makes a lot more sense now. Yeah.
Good. Cool.
Very cool. Thanks, Ron.
No worries. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything else that anyone wants to take a specific look at, or me to try to demo, or what's the general consensus so far? Does it seem something you would use? Is it something that you think we've implemented in a right way, or does it seem confusing? I'm keen to hear any thoughts.
I think it looks really good, Warren. I'm glad they went with CSS Grid, and I really love using data attributes and the fact you can hook into them and customize it. It's so customizable. It's a lot to take in one demo, but
yeah, of course.
And well done, by the way.
Well,
Good CSS gridding.
well, yeah, my CSS grid is very limited, but yes, I'll pass on the feedback to the team. I know Neil's done a ton of work with this with a couple of the other devs who've done some of the C# stuff, but yes, I'll let them know that it's a thumbs up from you, Dean. Cool. I think, yeah, the best thing I would love for all of you to do is to kind of, when you next get some free time, is to, download the 10.3 RC and give it a go. I think as much as I can do a demo and show you some of these bits and pieces, I think until sometimes you get your hands dirty with trying to build what you want to build, you'll either let us know the frustrations that you're coming into, or you'll have the questions, how do I do this or how do I do that? And hopefully we can then either guide you in the right direction or help you and say you can do this, or okay, we missed that and maybe it's something that we need to add between the RC and the final release. Nice. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Yes.
Sorry, I've got a brief question.
Yep.
Is there a way to disable the preview search? It's kind of like you've got like the classic like block list view.
Yep. So I can. So with the installing or clicking that button that said give me the default configuration. So this kind of 2-column. We had a rich text editor. That by default comes with a back office preview. But if we go back to, let's create another one. Out the box, it doesn't come with preview, so it's more probably what you're used to with the block list view. So content, but yeah, there is no way to kind of. There's no kind of button there or UI switch to say toggle between the two modes of kind of rich preview and the blocks of just the labels. Grid 2. Let's create another one. Let's create a new one. We're going to create our own blocks. We'll just call it header. Content and I don't know, headline. That is just a text string. Let's do that. And it can be allowed in the root, and it can be allowed in areas if there's other blocks that allow areas. We can maybe play around with this resize option, so we can say that maybe a header can span the full width, 6, and maybe 4. I don't know. Let's play around with that and see what happens. And let's add another block. I don't know, rich text. Content, body text. Rich text, one of them. Cool. Save. Because it's the same as my document type alias. I'll just call you Griddy. So let's go and create a new page. Grid 2, add some content, a header. I am header. And then a rich text. I am some content. So you can see that I've then just got these blocks, and the header we said that we could resize. So you can resize to 4, 6, or 12. So if that was nested, maybe like in that 2-column or another block that had support for areas, then you could see that I could resize it and then I can move things next to it. So maybe if this rich text supports some resizing, we can do some of that. Oh, wrong place. So this can also be 4, 6, and 12. Save. So we could put them so they're kind of more side by side. I've made this one too wide. Or yeah, chosen the wrong ones. I should obviously done different values so that it spans a bit nicer. But you can see that's just the blocks. If I then went back to that configuration and went back to previews, then obviously they would be previews. And then obviously if you don't want it to say header and rich text, then we can go back and then change those labels, which I never remember. I think is it just headlight? Can I literally just put in the property name?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so now I've got the value of whatever was in there. So I'm header, you can see me. And then we can resize this one. Let's see what happens when we do that. Just realize we're going to have another page that doesn't have. Just copy paste. Let's take a look. Is it because block models builder even are up to date? Is it because it's not being compiled with it? Let's see. Build. So that's our other page. So grid 2. Oh, I didn't call it model.grid, did I? It was griddy or something. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, and then I'm now, as I've chosen the route of kind of shipping my own stuff, I'm then have to then implement the partial view for the header here and the rich text. But we can. Ooh, 3 minutes. I'll see if I can do it. So what was it called?
I think what I like the most is somebody could transition easily to the block grid editor from block list editor.
In terms of editors, yeah, experience, I think
Yeah.
it'll be not too bad for them.
And then you could sort of slowly migrate to the sort of the more grid-like functionality as time goes on. Yeah, I really like it.
Good. So that's that one, and then we'll copy this one and create another one. What was the other one? It was just called header. Come on, name. This is a model of header. I think I called it headline. I don't know, in some H2. And then grid. Oh, 2. Okay, I must have done something wrong. That they're sitting side by side and not. So that is 4. This one is still set to 12. Maybe I didn't save the content. Yeah. Refresh. Yeah, now they're kind of on the same line. And then with CSS Grid, you can see, yeah, 4 and 4. So hopefully that was kind of a very whistle-stop tour around the CSS Grid or the new block grid editor. Hope you found that useful.
It's definitely something I'm going to be looking further into when it's eventually released.
Cool, good. If you do have time between now and release, which is normally 2 weeks' time, we would highly recommend, that you kind of get your hands dirty with it and start attempting to build. Maybe you can, whatever project that you're working on now, maybe spin up a very simple 10.3 RC site and try and replicate, maybe if you're doing anything with the kind of layouty stuff or grid stuff that you might have done with block list or another approach, maybe you can try and replicate that with the block grid and see how far you get. I'd love to hear how you get on.
Yeah, definitely tend to plug in view components into the view. So obviously have some more backend functionality. So that'd be something I'll play around with as well. I'm guessing it's the exact same process to achieve on that. So
Cool, that's good to hear, Andy.
yeah, good stuff. Thank you for the demo.
No worries. Have a good Thursday all, and if you're off to Duke Fest tomorrow, have a good Duke Fest and say hello to everyone. If not, I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Warren.
You.
No worries. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.